why do you go or not go to church? If I'm going to do it right. So first off, I thought it was really funny that I got 3 likes on the post and 67 comments, right? Welcome to my thoughtful ramblings, where we'll talk about all sorts of things, getting joy from what each new day brings. My thoughtful ramblings. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Michelle. Welcome back to Thoughtful Ramblings. I'm so glad you could join today. I have Sam Connolly as my special guest, and hello, this everybody. Is the famous Sam who's usually behind the camera, but today we figured we'd drag him out and throw him in front of a microphone and the camera.
Pulled me out of the dungeon.
Yeah, and what? So for the past hour, Sam and I have been recording.
Phantom recording.
But alas, no. That's okay. So this is we're gonna hit it one more time.
Yeah, we're gonna hit it one more time. We're having such a good conversation.
We really were.
And
you guys really missed a good conversation.
I looked down and the red light wasn't on. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But I see that red light now, and now that I know that's the light that needs to be on, I know to look for it. I keep looking over now because now I'm like
learning the hard way.
Yeah, we were talking about oh my gosh, a lot of addictions. We were talking about smoking came up, just the reason I started smoking was because I was told at the tender age of 12 that after you smoke a joint and all the resin gets collected on your lungs, cigarette smoke will push it out into your bloodstream and make you 15% higher.
Can we
These are not
get
facts.
Some fact checks on that?
This is not fact. But back in those days of 1984, we didn't have the internet. Praise God. Those were good days. We played outside. We could ride in the back of pickup trucks. No seat belts, no helmets. It was awesome. Yeah, concussions and whatever.
All the stuff that makes life valuable.
Yeah.
It's honestly hard for me to even think about life without the internet.
You know, now that we've had it for so long, but I like the were you alive with the dial-up? Do you remember like the?
Yeah, I was born in 95, and my parents were really slow to bring in technology to our house. I was a sheltered pastor's kid, so the internet and all that stuff was not a thing for us for a long time. Wow,
that's smart because we had it, but it was basically my dad wanted to do this. He was all into Disney collectibles and stuff, and he would like to. He wanted to put them all on this brand new platform called eBay. And I remember, so my parents have been doing eBay now, my gosh, for like 25 years, which is so funny with all their like Disney collectibles. And if you ever go into my parents' house, it's full of stuff.
It's cringy a little bit.
It's full of everything, but everything is like brand new in boxes and brand new in packaging. And like my father will see something and think it's going to be this thing.
Yeah.
They have literally, oh my gosh, probably 7 or 8 Rubbermaid, the big, large totes full of Burger King and McDonald's Happy Meal toys.
I bet you there's probably people looking for that stuff.
There are. And please write into the show and let me know who you are, because I'd really like to, as my parents get older and older, me and my siblings keep looking around at this stuff like, uh-oh.
Look, your dad's going to sell all that stuff, make a fortune, be like, look
at what I did. And I've been telling them, I'm like, sell it all, right? Yeah. This is my idea. And travel. Yeah. And enjoy the rest of your life and use it towards, if you're like nervous about the electric bill or, bills coming, whatever. You have it's like almost commodity in their home that they could be. Yeah. But my mom will list like, I listed this. It's on eBay now. And I'm like, but Mom, there's all this you could list. And she's so cute.
I'm still waiting for my PlayStation Portable that I ordered in like 2007. Still haven't gotten it. I worked all summer for that. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll just send you another one if it gets lost in the mail. I'm like, okay, great. And I'm still waiting.
You hear that? He's still waiting. I ordered some, I feel like a fool even saying, but whatever. I don't care. I'm my own person. I ordered SpongeBob gibbets.
For your Crocs?
For my Crocs.
Yeah,
because I love SpongeBob and what the heck? I want to represent. I want to represent my favorite sponge.
Yeah.
So I ordered them and I was very excited and I never got those. And then I ordered some Bob's Burgers stickers.
I know that you love your Bob's Burgers.
I do. I have a lot of socks to match my different.
Yeah. All of her socks peek out of her Crocs, like the main figureheads, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, I'll have to wear them someday to show you. But Bob, it was Linda. Linda was my. And I think it was because
you're kind of like Linda, like on a lot of levels.
Well, that's what all the youth kids would say to me. Oh my God, you're so much like Linda Belcher. All right, and like we would all kind of nest
just
like that.
happy-go-lucky.
And I loved it. And I am more like Linda, but I think that's why I love Bob so much because I'm so much like Linda. And Bob's just like.
But is Eric
so funny?
Like Linda? I mean, like Bob. Let's just get into it.
There's a lot of Eric and a lot of Bob. So there have been times where I've seen the matchup. You know what? I was saying to him the other day, if you watch Everybody Loves Raymond,
I have not watched that show.
Not watched that. So he's similar to the husband in that show, and one other character I equated him to the other day, and you're out of your mind. But I was like, oh my gosh, that is so Ray Barone on this show. He's like, oh my gosh, it's a great show. You should watch it because it's really funny. It's clever and super funny. That's what I'm, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's, but I don't like South Park.
It's brutal.
I've watched episodes where I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so clever.
Yeah.
Wow. This writing is awesome.
Yeah.
And then they'll do something that's like really over the top.
Yeah, their depictions of Jesus and God like really painful for me to watch.
Same.
So like I always get a check. Like whenever I watch even a little bit, like I get a check and I'm like I can't watch it.
I even watch cartoons about it now, and I'm getting like
yeah.
But like not cartoons, commercials. That was the word.
Yeah.
Obviously. No, it wasn't obvious because if it was obvious, it would be known.
Yeah.
But so those. But it's funny, and it's a cartoon, and that's a like now. When I was a kid, we had cartoons from 7 a.m. to 12 noon on Saturday.
That was
That was it. That was all the cartoons we had. And they were the great cartoons. They were the Scooby-Doos. They were the Looney Tunes. They were just really great, classic, awesome cartoons.
Yeah.
And then at 12 noon, bowling came on. I don't know what the heck was this thing with bowling for my entire childhood at 12 noon. And, but so that was like my signal. Okay, now it's time to go outside. And we wouldn't come in until it got dark out.
I've made a lot of money on competitive bowling.
Have you?
No.
Oh. Competitive lying. The worst.
A lot of bets. I grew up on the Looney Tunes. And, like, my dad's such a boomer. Like, he's obviously crying on the couch because it's so slapstick.
Mm-hmm. That's my jam, too.
Yeah,
I love
seriously.
My dad was very much like Wile E. Coyote, the coyote that always got smacked by the Roadrunner.
Yeah.
My dad is, I've mentioned in previous podcasts. Oh, actually, we haven't aired that one. Or maybe we will have between, I don't know. But there was one podcast I recorded. I don't know if it's released or when it's getting released.
It's coming up soon.
Oh, it's coming up soon.
Yeah.
It's called Good One, Dad. And it's about some of the antics of my father. You wouldn't... He's literally Wile E. Coyote. If anyone's walking under a cliff and a boulder falls off, lands on top of him, and then he somehow comes out unscathed,
yeah,
that's my dad. And
yeah.
It's the strangest thing, but So yeah, it's always had like this really cool, I don't know, family dynamic too.
Yeah.
Like me and my siblings would watch. My dad would kind of come out with his coffee and be like, "Oh, I love the coyote. I love him." I'm like, yeah, because you are him, Dad. You are him.
Yeah. I have this like sneaking suspicion. I like just trend that I've been picking up on it, or a theory I'd have to say is like your favorite movies actually say more about yourself. Like you love your favorite, like one of my favorite movies I have two favorite is Good Will Hunting and Southpaw. And Good Will Hunting is like more about like, you know, someone who's like actually really smart, but like they're kind of in the gutter, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of need someone who like pulled them out of that and like exposed like how incredible they are. I felt like God was like that for me. Like I literally was terrible at school, had no social interaction. I was like terrible. And like was not doing great like on an intellectual level. And then like I met the Lord and literally everything changed on a dime. Like literally like it's like someone just turned on the lights, or like there was just a part of my brain that just woke up.
Yeah. I get that.
And then the Southpaw, because just like my more of my like street fighting past and just like feeling absolutely hopeless and depressed, and then like this almost just a struggle against like the childhood that I was, you know, raised with. So like from that I'm like you love movies that are like absolutely related to you in a way. Like it doesn't have to look just like that, but like you can relate and resonate with the feelings that, you know, the character displays.
I'm laughing because your movies have a lot of depth, you know. And I'm like,
you the SpongeBob movie?
I'm combing through the recesses of my brain. No, my favorite movie is Airplane, which is all slapstick from beginning to end. The Princess Bride. Mm-hmm. You know, I just love clever comedy. I love slapstick. Like I love that instant you hit the ball, someone hits it right back. Oh. And I think that's why I like these kind of interviews or sit downs or conversations, whatever the heck. I'll come up with a catchy name at some point, I'm sure. But I think that's, you know, because I've always loved to hit the ball and get it hit back. And I think that's why I love our pastor so much, because he's so quick. Yeah. He's got this wit like that I love, you know, that really quick wit, really funny, super. Yeah.
It's not that standard like church humor,
right?
That like you just going, ha ha ha, that's kind of funny. Like Zach literally comes with the heat.
Oh, I called him Mac in my last one. You can roast him, and he loves it.
And he'll roast you right back. Yeah. Like one of the Sundays, like he comes off the stage and he comes over to my side and gives me a hug. I'm like, dude, you look like a mechanic. You look like you're about to change a timing belt or something.
Oh, I know that. I remember that shirt.
I'm like, where did you find this? Like, did you work for like Jiffy Lube or something?
Those are very stylish. I happen to have one that says Edward and then the little Van Halen symbol here. I got to dig it out I bought it at a concert years ago. But anyway, yeah.
I can definitely see like you loving Princess Bride.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, as I've listened to your podcast and like fall in love with your character and just your story, like I see like the traits of like being saved. And like, you know, like being in weird predicaments that are kind of humorous, but like also like the Lord and certain characters.
They're humorous now.
Yeah, back then maybe not so much.
Yeah, and I think like just the, you know, that's one thing my parents have instilled in me since I was a little girl, was just laughter. Like I remember sitting at our kitchen table, and it would be more laughter than anything else. We all really, like, my family's all, so that's what it was. Like, everyone hitting the ball. Yeah. There were times I left the table in tears crying in the bathroom, but whatever. I had big feet. So I was kind of asking for it, really. But you know what, though?
Why do you even grow big feet? That was totally your fault.
None of us have big feet. Big flat feet, water skis and like, but that was all like.
Really, they actually roasted you for your feet?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I do. I have big, long, flat water ski feet, and I had a size 10 shoe when I was in 6th grade, and I didn't know the Lord yet, but I began praying, God, please don't let these things grow any longer. But you know, before it was almost like my feet shot out before I shot up. Mm-hmm. So
now you're in proportion.
I was like, you know, you could push me and I'd spring right back up. Now, not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You were
yeah.
snowshoeing before it was popular.
And I was always so sensitive. And I remember so many times like apologizing for how sensitive I was. And maybe it attributes to my humor, maybe it attributes to, I don't know what it is, but I'm super sensitive. I cry over everything. And now I don't anymore. I'm thankful for that sensitivity, because I think it's that sensitivity that keeps me from railroading someone with, because I tend to get caught up in the funny. Airplane and different movies like that. And I tend to just kind of like, oh my gosh, everybody's laughing. Yeah. I'm gonna keep roasting this kid until there's nothing left to roast. Yeah. And send him in the bathroom crying and
got it.
Right. But that sensitivity that was deposited in me, I believe has kind of just kept me to just be able to dial that back a little bit, because I can get very caught up in the moment, caught up in the funny, and like making other people laugh has always been like something I was good at, and something that people liked me for. Like I never had a lot of friends growing up that were true. One throughout my younger years until middle school is when I met some other kids, but in those elementary years and prior, I had like one friend, but everyone in class liked me and laughed. They weren't my friends. A lot of them were really mean. You know who you are. It's okay. I've forgiven you, but whatever. It still hurts.
Because you need forgiveness. You do. That's what you need.
But but that was, what kind of brought me back. Like if I was getting bullied, if I was, making other people laugh would kind of like bring me like back up on my feet again, my gigantic, flat, huge feet. But thank God I did grow into them finally. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I was scared for my kids.
Yeah. That's what I love about the Northeast is there's a value for roasting. There's a value for like busting each other's balls and, chops and all that stuff. And like, growing up in Canada, like that was not a thing. People get offended so quickly and they write you off. And like I was more brash and, like I have high value for comedy and like being in a culture where, like it's funny when the comedian does it, but when you have someone at home do it, like what are you doing? Like, and like I was always kind of like the social reject because of like, well, I wouldn't say that. I'm not going to speak that over myself, but it was kind of a hard time relating with people because like I feel like I'm so real. Like I'll tell you how I feel, but that also came with a whole bunch of other stuff like I was looking for other people's approval, and you mix that in with it, and like it becomes like a easy thing to like reject.
And that's the thing too, like that approval would come in the form of laughter for me. I would be getting bullied on the playground. It's so, and it sticks with you. It really, really does. But you know what I've gleaned from it, what I was able to make beauty out of those, God was able to make beauty out of those ashes. We were asked to do the youth at the church we're at years ago. And there was probably like 3 or 4 girls in there specifically that I can think of that were getting tormented at school. It was not.
You can see it on them.
You could.
You know what I mean?
One specifically, she would have her hair hanging down. Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say the name because she's not that person anymore. She's like, she holds her head back now. And there's a big difference. But that whole that bullying thing, I could see it on them, and I don't think they knew I could see it on them, but because I had experienced it, I can weirdly and easily see it on specifically young girls. Yeah. And kind of help them through it, and talk to them, say, when I was a kid, I used to get bullied, and like they'd kind of like, you did? Yeah. You got bullied? Yeah. Like, and almost like in disbelief, because now who's going to bully me now? But anyway, but
because you got some jokes ready to go at all times.
But you know what? No, it's confidence.
Yeah.
And that too, and it comes with practice. I used to have to tell my daughter, like she was starting to almost inherit that that victim
mentality,
like shroud where people would almost see her as a victim and attack her before she even spoke or entered or and I remember telling her, I said, you know what, Sam, it was one of my ex-boyfriends who said to me one day, and I'll never forget it. I used to look down at the ground all the time. I have big feet. I got to watch where I'm stepping, But I would walk out, and I remember walking out to his car one day, and this was Johnny, the one who had the gun. But I'll never forget this from Johnny. And I get in the car, and he's like, why do you walk like that? I was like, I have giant feet. What do you mean, why do I walk like that? No, he didn't. That's not why. But I was like, what do you mean? And he says, you look down at the ground the whole time. And I was like, I didn't even realize I was doing it,
Yeah.
And he says, put your shoulders back, walk with your head up.
Yeah.
He's like, be proud of who you are. And I was like, okay. And I know, I'm not like, I'm not proud, but I'm proud of what God's done through me. I'm proud of what, like how fruitful my life has been. And so I began to walk with my shoulders back and my head up in this new confidence that I wasn't confident in carrying at first. At first, when you're walking with your head up, you got to look around.
Yeah.
There's other people's faces around there.
Look people in the eyes.
Yeah. And that's...
And not look away. That's what I struggle with, is like, you see people before you say hi, and they're too far to say hi, and you kind of do one of these and like look back at them.
Yeah. And I was like, so I told her, you know what got me to... Gosh, this one nostril just keeps running. It's so weird. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm allergic to cats too. Anyway, see, that's what happens. I lose my train of thought. But it was
looking how to scan how to scan the room. Yeah.
It was about acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I pretending I was confident.
Yeah.
And through that action.
Yeah.
Acting. I'm going to pull that word like a little bit longer. Action. And this acting confident finally began to manifest within me, and I became confident. And I think that's why I'm still there.
Yeah.
Because out of that, and I would tell Sam, come on, you just literally pretend, because guess what? If you look the part, people will believe it. And it's true.
I think honestly, kids can be really brutal. And I think kids are actually, everybody's learning. Like, there's a couple of things I would say about this is like, teenage years are not the years of security. You know what I mean? Like, no. You're growing, you're changing, like you're realizing like how amazing other people might look, and like you're so surface level, like you're in your head, you're like, wow, look how pretty this person is, or look how amazing this guy is, like he's so secure, like why am I not secure, and stuff like that. But I also like, kids hit the mark. Like I know these kids are gifted, like, and I have a nephew who is so good, like he's so prophetic, but he doesn't know it, because he's like being used by the opposite. Like you'll be feeling a type of way, or like you might be doing something, and he'll like just like make fun of something that just like hits a nerve that like makes you shut down. Right? And like kids have this, well, I wouldn't say all kids, but like, I would say majority of the bullies who like, without even having to like really converse with you, but they know exactly what to hit. Right. Like they're listening to the opposite voice, right? Because like Satan, his name is literally the accuser.
Right. And what happens too, what happened to me, and what I believe that that whole season was about, was for it to not happen to these other girls in that way, and hopefully like I kind of helped them in that. But I became a bully. I was like, you know what? No, enough of this. So I was the tough kid. I was making fun of kids. I was being, like instead of, like, I would be almost the first to attack.
Yeah.
And it wasn't pretty. Like, I look back on some of my actions, and it's like, oh my gosh, that was a little kid I said that to, and I reached out.
There's so many things that I've said that are just like, I look back and I'm like,
oh, I know. I've reached out to a kid that was my bully, one of my bullies, and he was so mean to me. He was really not a nice kid at all at the time, but I saw him on Facebook, it's like, oh, you may know these people. I'm like, oh, I know them. But then I was, I had seen it a couple different times, and one day I hear, write to him, forgive him. Mm-hmm. So I did. I wrote to him, was like, hey, you know what? I just wanted you to know, I apologize for my part in that, because again, he'd hit the ball, being a jerk.
Yeah.
And I would hit it back relentlessly, and it was ugly, and I think that it's just this wash of forgiveness and this new, I don't know, teenage years suck though. Once you get out of them, it like kind of turns over, like your soil turns over, and those things that happen to you, man, you can tell when a kid is bullied because there's depth. Yeah. There's soul. Mm. They have empathy for others. Yeah. They
know what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of the strongholds of my life before, like even when I got saved, like it was still persistent until like, I would say until I went to Bible college, and even after that, like when the Lord really started like ripping things out of my life that were just like childhood strongholds, like rejection was one of them. Mm. And actually just recently, like the Lord's been shifting my season, but I'll talk about that in a second. But like, I never, ever wanted other people to feel how I felt on such a deep level. Like, it's almost like the things that like the devil's purpose to like hurt me. Like, I flip flop, and I'm like, I'm never going to let anybody, like, I never want anybody to feel like I'm rejecting them. Like, I want to be fully present with them. Like, when I talk with someone, I want them to feel like they're the only person in the room, and what they have to say or where they're at is like really valuable.
Yeah, I'm listening.
and then and like, that's like one of the things I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and I remember crying because you kind of like, you not only just referenced the like that you were rejected at one point, but you like recalled the feelings of like people like in high school, like, and like, man, I was so wrecked by that episode. I'll link it down in the description, but I was so wrecked by that episode because I'm like, I know exactly how that feels like. Yeah. And it like just brought up all the same stuff. And like honestly, like from age, especially for guys, because if prefrontal cortex like starts to mature and like stops developing after, I think the latest is 25, 26, but just like, like a lot of guys will tell you like the difference, but like the season from 23 to 30 is so different. Like I used to look at other guys, I'm like, how are you so secure in yourself? How can you just say that? And like, there is a mental maturity that happens where you just kind of like, you know what? Like you get out of high school is like a mess too. Cause like, it's like an animal kingdom, right? Like people are looking for like popularity. They're looking for power. They're looking for respect. All of everybody's insecurities is coming up to the top, and they're manifesting themselves as strengths. And like, you leave, and then you're no longer the person you think you are. You know what I mean? And like, and you start to realize once you're out of high school, and I think this starts to happen in college. I never went officially to college, so I don't really know, but I know being out of college, you're like, whoa, like everybody around you, regardless of their weird quirks or stuff, they all have value. Mm-hmm. And like, there's been so many of those moments of just like, I can't believe I said that to that person, or I can't believe I had the heart posture to reject them actively. Mm. Oh, wow. And making them feel a certain way so I could feel better about myself. But it was just like, I'm like, I want them to feel the pain that I felt. I want them to feel like they don't belong. They don't deserve attention. Like all these things, like I wish I never behaved in. I wish like I could take everything that I know right now and go back and like actually be... Right. Not just a refuge for people, but like be myself, and like being secure in that, and being able to call things out that were just like not okay, but like accepted as the normal. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because like the Lord has like switched the tides for me, where like I almost have devalued my friendship because I'll give it out to anybody. And the Lord's like starting to shift the tides of like, okay, like now it's time to be more exclusive. Not with the heart to be exclusive, but to like realize who my true friends are and really put a higher value on that. And still being friendly, you know, still like loving really well, but like just not sharing everything, being... I've been learning that. It's been tough.
Yeah, it is tough because and I think for me personally, that's what the podcast has been, this really awesome kind of way. Now, when I'm in my family dynamic, I don't get a word in. So maybe that's why I invested in a microphone. Because you guys, I mean, no one could listen, but it's super cathartic, getting it out, getting it, you know, off your chest. And sometimes too, like, you don't realize you're helping someone else who's kind of going through that same thing. And the rejection thing is really real. You know, like it's so hard. You don't like grow out of that. You know, and
you have to be delivered from it.
You know, and like you know, like at work, it's so funny because I've worked in a couple recently. You know, I'm getting a little older, whatever. But
I couldn't tell.
No, thank you. Thank you for saying that, Sam. And I know you're. I know you're telling the truth because, you know, we serve the same God. But what I notice is it's very hard when you're an older person to kind of get into the societal flow of the 20-somethings. And by that, like, what I mean is I work right now, it's all, you know, age range, maybe 25, 30. I would cluster 90% of the employees in that place in that age bracket. And so they're all the same generation. They're all the same, you know what I mean? So they share those common threads and
very common upbringing, same technology.
And through all those threads that they share, they've already like have something before they even come together, which is, you know, kind of, and same with my generation, you know, you just kind of feel safer, I guess. Like there's two older women that work with me, one of which I just love, man. She's just,
you get it.
Yeah, she's on it, and she's so good and funny, and she's great. But like the younger kids, it's almost like there's this old cartoon I'm going to reference, and I see it in my mind's eye so often. Thank you, Looney Tunes. And it's all these little dogs, and they're all like getting ready to do something together. They're planning something, and they've all got their faces in. And they're like, so when you're kind of looking up from an aerial view, and they're in a circle, and all their butts are facing outwards, and they're all talking about their secret plans, what they're gonna do to you know, together. And there's this one little dog on the outside. He's like, hey, what's going on? He's like kind of bouncing around the outside of the circle, trying to get in. And by the time he makes his way into the middle of the circle, they're like, okay, meeting adjourned. And let's go. And the little dog's like, well, I
know what that feels like.
I missed that whole thing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I see that. Yeah. And I see that. And then and that's the thing too. Like, I was suffering from this need to be liked. Yeah. You know, and that was something too I had to kind of work through. Yeah. Like, and now it's like, you know, I don't need that. Yeah. I don't need to be liked. Yeah. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna do my job the best I can, and whatever flows from that, awesome. Yeah. Yeah. But whatever gets stopped up and awesome. Yeah. Because at this point in my life, if it's not from God, I don't want it. Yeah. Period. I mean, I can be like, you know, have those like kind of, you know, oh, hey, how you doing? You know, oh, good. Okay, cool. Yeah. Those types of interactions, but the realness isn't there. And that realness I've been coming to collect is very precious. Yeah. And I don't want to cast pearls to swine. Yeah. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. You put a high value on your friendship. Like, I had, like, if you are struggling with, like, rejection and stuff, like, I think the things that really help me is like, get God in your life. Like, like he loves you and like will break it off of you. Over time. He will surround you with friends. And that was another thing, is like you need a community around you who really care about you and they're real with you, who've encountered the love of God on such a deep level where like they know exactly what rejection feels like and looks like, and they can see it on people and like almost combat it. But like I personally had like 2 encounters of like God setting me free from rejection. The first encounter, like I was in my second year and I was just through dealing with rejection. And it doesn't help that I'm a feeler, so like I'll walk in a room and feel whatever is going on in the room, but I knew there was this underlying root that like whenever it hit, like would shut me down. And like I was in worship and I'm like, God, I refuse to move from this spot until you free me from this rejection. And like I was pressing into worship and I'm just like refuse to move. And like right at the end of worship, like God, like he shows me this vision of me having like this kind of like blow up at my church back home. And I remember like people were actively rejecting me. I don't remember like the vision, like, you know, scene by scene, but I remember running the other direction to find like solitude. And I hear these like footsteps running after me, and I thought it was like one of the pastors like looking, you know, like trying to like, you know, console me. And I look back and it's Jesus. And he like grabs me. He's like, I will never reject you. Like I will never. And he just like started speaking over me. And I felt this like shield like break off of me. Like I felt like this release, like this tight thing that's been around my chest for my whole life that's been trying to restrict me and kill me slowly, like just broke off. And I remember like just weeping, like ugly weeping in worship. Like it was just like so powerful.
The best and the worst.
And like I just feel like this heat radiating off me. And I remember someone behind me, like out of sympathy, was like had their hand on my back, but it was like a half-hearted like hand on the back.
Like, oh.
But I was like ugly weeping, and you could like my whole body was shaking, and I was like, yeah. So that was like the first encounter. The second one was actually just recently, where we were just at like this young adults a group for my church, and I remember like whenever like I encounter these set of people, like they'll turn their back around or they'll just right away leave. And it was like an instant, like an act of rejection where like they're telling you like they don't like you, they don't want to be around you. And it's really funny because I got to be careful with what I say in this, because like this stuff is still playing out. But I often see like whenever that happens, like the Lord shows me like the roots of this community. That they like, it's like they multifaceted, like there's different people. I can see almost like their bond together and it manifests together. And it's hard to explain, but I remember just feeling like really distraught that night. And like I noticed that when I am like going through something, I'm like kind of like hurting, like I'll stay up really late and just watch videos just to numb the pain, because that was kind of like my comfortable spot as a kid, was just watching TV and whatever. And I remember just like struggling with this. I'm like, God, like I kind of realized that like it's 4 a.m. I'm like, God, like obviously I'm going through something. My heart is going through something, but I'm having a hard time like grasping what's going on. Like I'm replaying these events in my mind. And I remember like laying in bed and I'm like, God, like why is this so painful for me? And he's like, because it makes you feel worthless. And like he just started showing me this vision of like, when you reject something, it's because you don't see value in it. Like I saw this person just qualifying things like going through like fabric and like, oh, this one has a stain, I'm going to cut it out and reject it. And like whenever these people, or like really just rejection in general, like whenever someone rejects you, it's actually telling you that you're worthless. You don't mean anything. And like as soon as the Lord did that, like said that, like I felt this like empowerment of like, I'm not worthless, A, but also B, it's not personal anymore.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like,
yeah, it does.
I'm like, if you're actively rejecting someone and qualifying them and feel like almost like that you're superior, it's not a me problem. It's actually a you problem. Because I know that in my heart is in the right place. And honestly, like that was kind of like one of the reasons why the Lord's put me through a season. Like you need to put higher value on your friendship and stop performing for people's approval. You need to stop performing, trying to get people in your life to like you.
That's a big thing.
And as soon as I did
that's what we do in life, though. Like you know, you're graded.
Yeah.
Your job.
There's a
system
to enforce it, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I started as soon as I started, like, I saw these specific people that I was trying to, be kind to and really, like, try to get their approval, because I just don't like the feeling of being uncomfortable around them, but I'm probably just feeling their discomfort. As soon as I stopped, like, trying, it's almost like their heart positions changed and they're, like, attracted to me. Like, I could feel them, like, wanting. It's like, oh, you're not pursuing me anymore? Why? Like, that curiosity, like, nosy why. And it's been kind of like an interesting flip. And that's why I love doing Life with the Lord, because, like, literally, like, a moment can change your life and change your perspective. And, like, yeah, it's just been wild, honestly.
And that rejection thing too. It's I've personally been struggling with that a little bit in the church realm. Recently, myself, we had been at the church we're at now for a few years, and we were really knit into it. And we were doing the youth, and the kids' parents, and we would go on. People would ask us out for dinner all the time. Like we were friends with, like, all the kids' parents, and I guess we kind of became popular in a way.
Why would you be popular?
Everyone wanted to, like, be around us, and but honestly, all I really cared about was the kids, which is maybe made it seem more like, oh, well, why, why are you so interested in them, But I love teenagers, specifically middle school age kids, for the main reason they're real. If they don't like you, you know it. If they do like you, you know it. Yeah. They're not gonna play this sugarcoat thing with you in order for you to like them and blah blah blah. So we had left this church we were at for quite a few years, and we felt called to go to another church to serve there. We served there, and we served in capacities that were not our capacities, and in turn got crazy burnt out. Yeah. And thank you, Jesus. Me and Ed Pichette, he's always going to have a huge place in my heart. I love him so much.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
on a deep level.
He's a great guy. Awesome pastor.
Yeah.
Right. Really great friend. And by kind of coming alongside and helping him, it became a people pleasing mission. And I was trying to people please him, and I have the congregation coming to me. I remember one day in worship, lifting my arms to the Lord, and I remember thinking, oh God, this is so good. This is like, it was like the first moment I could almost like just let my guard down enough to really worship him in spirit and truth, and it felt so good, and I was in his presence, and then I felt a tap, 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 tap.
I hate when people break you out of worship.
And I look, can you tell me where the envelopes are?
Can we wait until after the service?
I think that was the moment that the switch flicked, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting fed. I'm not getting that community worship anymore. So we decided to pull back for a little bit, and we ended up going back to the church where we were doing the youth and all of that before. No. And when we came back, the only ones that actively sought us out to say hello were the teenagers, were the kids that we were part of the youth. And you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to the Perdomo family, because you're real and you're hard, and I love yous. I love all yous, and their dad Jerry does all the pictures for me too.
He's an incredible photographer.
Yeah, he is. So you can check him out.
Jeremy is one of the most real dudes I've ever talked to. Like, I had a conversation with him at Young Adults a couple weeks ago, and I still think about it. And we were just like shooting the breeze. Like, we're talking about movies and stuff, and like when you are talking to someone that is so authentic, it like is life-giving. It's not draining. Like you kind of like, I don't know what it is. It's just like, it's amazing. It's amazing. But Jeremy is also an incredible leader. He's an incredible guy.
They're all their boys, Ethan, Christian. But Ethan, now it's funny because he's like a popular kid in high school now.
He is,
when we first met them, they were little kids. And
Ethan's got a gift of influence on his life.
And when we came back, it was them. That family was like, oh my gosh, how are you? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And all the other parents didn't even would I'm gonna say it, actively look
Rejecting.
the other way when we saw them.
Doesn't that sting?
And it does. And I'm like, what? I feel like I did something. I'm like, I feel so unwelcome, so unwanted.
Yeah.
The people that we served alongside, some of them act like they don't even know who I am.
Yeah. Sometimes like it's really interesting. Like I love the Lord with all my life, and like he like shows me things. And like sometimes when I see people like just behave out of like a really poor spirit, like when it's like, and like they're almost being used by the devil, like in the way that he manifests, like I just see the Lord like one of those, and I'm like, yeah, it's frustrating. I hear
that burr off of them.
Yeah.
You know,
but also like it's interesting to watch because God's so patient. And like, you know, he won't be mocked. Like he will literally like, I actually heard this from Chris Fountain. He's incredible. He says your problem is actually your promotion. The current problem that you're facing in your life right now is actually the promotion you've been praying for. And like, if you keep like finding yourself in these cycles where you like can't get out of gossip, you can't get it, like the Lord is actually proposing to you like, hey, maybe not, don't do that, like step out of it, you know.
Right.
But yeah, it's really funny to watch on the other side of just like, because like I would say I on a like a pretty established level, like I understand how God works and like his ways, and like when I see that, I'm like, oh man, like you got to go through a painful process to get out of that. Or it could be a moment of repentance, right? That works too. But like if you are stubborn and continue to go in that and harden your heart, like all right.
And it's interesting because there are some kids that do the same thing, like they'll actively turn away or whatever. But I chalk that up to, you know, just being an awkward kid. Those ones I say hi to anyway, you know, you ain't getting away from me that easy. But I was very kind of drawn back and to the point where I was like, well, hey. So funny story. I talked about it earlier with Sam, but I'm going to mention it again because it's got.
We'll talk like we never talked about it.
Let's talk like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. And so we had this really awesome church picnic the other day, and there's tons of people out there. It was huge. It had to be like 1,000 people there. It was big, and I whatever. So anyway, I'm kind of standoffish now at church. I just kind of sit in the back. I absorb. I worship. I love. I leave. You know, and it's good. The word is brought. The worship is killer.
Shout out to
so good. Thank you, Pastor Zach and HPC. You're awesome.
Yeah, love HPC.
So anyway, you know, service is ending, and our pastor again is, you know, sarcastic, funny, you know, we're just saying like weird little things all the time, which is part of the reason he's so awesome. Yeah. And he says at the end of the service, hey, you guys go out, have fun, enjoy, you know, because they made it the really short service. And he's like, but do me a favor, go out and meet 19 new people. Right? So, okay. No. Me and my husband are like, yeah, right. Just because we're sick of being rejected in that sense. So, you know, just to be transparent, I guess. And so I go over to the ladies' room, which is where I usually am. If you're ever looking for me at an event, look in the line in the ladies' room. 9 out of 10 times, that's where I am. So I meet the best people there, though. That's always been like a place for me to, I just, you know, start talking to the woman in front of me, behind me. People like it's a real social gathering.
The most
spot.
Incredible people do use they use the bathroom.
Yeah,
so.
It's pretty. Well, I don't know how men do it because they gotta use those urinals in front of each other. That could get awkward. There's a bunch of
rules about it. Yeah. You never ever stand beside somebody
and you never
else.
Cross the streams. I heard that one too.
Nope, unless you want to.
Oh, that might have been Ghostbusters. Yeah. But anyway, so he's, you know, pastor's like, oh, you know, go out, meet 19 new friends, blah blah blah. All right, cool. So anyway, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna run to the bathroom. I'm in line for the porta-john, and this woman comes over to me, and she's like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm so and so." And I was taken back because not a lot of people do that with me, especially where I was there and then I wasn't, and now I'm there again. There are a lot of people kind of. I feel, I'm getting that That's what I feel like. What are you doing here? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, and I was like, wow, I'm like, hi, I'm Michelle. It's nice to meet you. And she's like, excellent. Only 18 more to go.
Ouch.
And I'm like,
we could have been friends.
Wow. I said, did you want me to initial anything for you so you can show that hunt to Pastor Zach after you're completed your 19 hellos?
Yeah.
Like, give me a break.
Yeah,
and that's that kind of stuff. I'm just so sick of it. But you know what though? I also know Satan knows that's the kind of stuff I'm super sick of. Yeah. And
that's the bait of Satan, really. It's offense.
I was like, and I'm looking at this woman like, you're a tool. And I don't mean that like in a noun, like you're a tool. What a flippin' tool. But more like being used as a tool. Oh, that's a noun too, so forget that. But being toologized in such a way.
Just being used, you're a pawn.
You're being used and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And tools are useful.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't war against flesh and blood, so it's really just like, they probably have had a hard time growing up, or like, that's just what church culture is to them.
Right. She might, I don't know her backstory. I've never met the woman, obviously. I was one of the 19. But it made me, it was just like, I'm all set. Yeah. And so I came back and I told my husband, and he's like, of all the people for that to happen to, and that's exactly what my daughter said. She looked so discouraged when I told her, like, of everyone at that picnic, for that woman to go up to, there's 1,000 people there. I'm just going to put a blanket number on it. 1,000 people there, and she's got to go up to 19 of them, and you're one of the 19 of all the people there.
Yeah.
I wonder what the other 18 looked like, and that is like, are you pleasing man or are you pleasing God? If you're just doing this to check off a little box for your pastor, you go right the flip ahead. And don't get me wrong, I love my pastor. I would, if they needed something or wanted something, I would totally be there. There, even though we don't. I love them because they feed my family.
I hear your heart behind it. I don't think it's bad. It's just like you're tired of the performance.
Yeah.
And honestly, I honestly see the Lord doing something like pretty encouraging, but it's because it's in response to what I've also been seeing happen, is that people who have learned how to behave in church are learning how to kind of have a performance. I don't know, like almost a false authenticity where like they ask all the right questions, they do all the right things of like sympathy, but it's not real, you know? But
I'll sign up for the meal train, but then they're at home griping about being on the meal train, and now they have to make this meal and bring it over and blah, 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 blah. But you know what I mean?
Or like for one of the things that I've experienced, because Abby and I are just so real. Hey, babe. Abby and I are so real. And like, we'd be going through like a season, right? And we'll like confide in some people, and like they're saying all the right things. They're like, oh yeah, that is hard, and like they're trying to be there for you, but it's almost like they're doing it because that's what you do, not because like you actually genuinely care for someone. Yeah. But I feel like the Lord is also like, I feel like those people have the right heart because they're learning, right? They're learning, but I feel like the Lord is also sweeping in authenticity like on a whole different scale. And like Pastor John Gagne says this quite often, is like, man, like I really feel like the Lord is like we are the remnant. Like you take, you're taking like the beautiful part of a garment and like almost rejecting the rest. And that can be like a really painful thing to hear. But like, here's the thing, is like the only difference between being part of the remnant and not being part of the remnant is behaving. Like learning how to not behave, like learning how to just to be, learning how to like bring yourself to the table on like a very authentic level. Because like something I've always told people, because my wife and I love to like mentor and like help grow and like invest in people, is like we can't fix anything if you're not telling us the truth. Because you can't fix something false, because it was never true to begin with. But like what we've noticed is that when you properly bring all sides of the story in integrity, we're able to actually call out the things that are like wrong. and like invite the Lord to actually correct them in like a very gentle way. And like we're kind of talking about this a little bit before, but like, you know, like people can they can do it the hard way, they can do it the easy way, like repentance. And honestly, like learning how to like having really good leaders in your life, like submitting to leaders and finding the right leader. Because the thing is, like if you find the wrong leader, they're gonna exploit you. It's gonna be more of an ego thing. You gotta be able to measure that. But when you have an egoless leader who is just, you know, humble, they're empty before the Lord and they're filled with the Lord and they only speak when the Lord speaks, like that's where a lot of healing and advancement can happen, because it's not about like protecting yourself. It's actually about being developed by the Lord, and they're actually a vessel that can happen in a very quick manner. And like Bill Johnson says this all the time. It's like, you can't speed up the process, but you can definitely slow it down. And so like Lord, remove me from like the picture, like Lord, I just submit to you and your will. Like that is a huge thing. And like another thing that Bill says, all these Billisms, like the only difference between a wheat and a tare is that a wheat bows when fruitful. And so there's like very obvious things in your life that are not bowing to the Lord. And like I was reading this book called Spiritual Authority by Watchman Nee. A really good book, but don't read it if you're not ready for it. Is a way that man rebels against God is actually through their reason. And like when the Lord clearly, like either through his word is calling something out or is speaking to you directly about something, and you refuse to lay it before the cross, like that is a tare that needs to be uprooted. But you know it's authentic, like you are in true repentance because you bow in all things, and you give away, like, yeah. So I've just been like in this stream of like, Lord, like just a submission, like, Lord, have everything in my life, like anything that is standing up, take it. And like, you know, that repentance, like that's what the Lord desires, is repentance, like changing away, like you find out that you're walking a certain way and just turning around. Cause like, it's so much more fruitful to not fight for it, you know, right. Like, and just let him be who he is inside of you, being a pure vessel, being a manifold for God's glory to flow through you. And so, yeah, you got to lay down your reason. You got, like, when the Lord tells you something, he confronts you and he brings you around the right people who are leading you in the right way. Like, it's so true that his kindness leads you to repentance, because like I've been privileged to be surrounded by incredible leaders who are super humble. And it's like, I'll take something that's very scary. Like, I was actually talking to a leader about the rejection thing. I was like, I don't know, like, if I should tell him, because I know that he knows these people that, like, I'm like hurt by. And I told him, and like he was like, he just took took it, and he talked to me about it in a way, like he didn't punish me for it. He wasn't like, oh, your heart posture is so wrong. Like, it wasn't that. It was just like, yeah, like that could happen, and it's not what you think. Like, and he just gives like the Lord like surrounds you with leaders that just like say the right things at the right time, because they're prostrate before him, you know.
I think, you know, for me too, what was happening, like I began to grow accustomed to people coming up to me, hi, hey, ho, you know, kind of like being very attracted to what I had to offer.
Yeah, because you're authentic.
And and you it can get like, and then when it's gone, so, and it can almost be like a sense of rejection. It's been a really interesting season. I feel like it's there's a stirring in my heart, and probably in everyone's heart, where I'm just so sick of that fake, let me check you off my list kind of attitude, and to see, you know, I wish she was joking. Yeah. You know, I keep like replaying it in my head, but she was so gleeful in the fact that she was going to do what the pastor told her to do, and she was going to get it done. Yeah. Check. 19. Okay. Oh, hi. I'm so, and I was like,
that's a bummer.
Wow.
Honestly.
Like, and then I was talking to my husband about it. What if she meets a brand new Christian, or what if she meets someone who decided to recommit their lives to the Lord? Maybe they've, you know, kind of been through the church thing, and I see this a lot. They've been through the church thing. They got hurt by the church, and now they've completely rejected the church and all things God out of their life because of those hurts. And then, like, I could see in my mind, like, those people getting that handshake. They finally pick themselves up and say, you know what? I'm ready again, Lord. I'm gonna step out into this thing. And I mean, I know from the pulpit, it was not meant that way. I know Zach's heart, and he's just so good.
It's more about the misread of the people.
He appears to be good.
No, Zach's a good guy. I know him.
He's a great
guy.
But he's, he jokes.
Yeah.
And he says funny things. But
he married us. He married Abby and I. And he just, like, it was incredible. Like, Zach is so gifted to be, like, an apostle of heaven. Like, sharing the culture of, like, love and, like, love and acceptance real. On, like, a real level. Like, on a, like, a Jesus level. Where, like, I don't know. He's, like, almost, like, never nervous. And, like, I don't know. He's just who he is. And he's so, like, secure in himself in that manner. And it's just, like, man, like, what a privilege to be able to, like, serve underneath someone like this.
Yeah. It is. And my husband and I we've kind of tossed around, because people can wreck things, people can hurt us and reject us and all of these things. And I'm like, gosh, I love going there. I love hearing the word. I love being in the worship, but I'm telling my husband, I'm like, I feel like there's no connection there other than the kids we used to mentor in youth and my daughter. And a couple other people, but we have 2 services, so you don't always see those other people. And, I was like, well, why do we keep going back if we don't feel like we're knit in? And it's because of that incredible leadership, the hearts of the elders, and the you can see it. It's all over them. And that it is a privilege to be a part of. And a lot of times, too, our own minds can trick us. But, like, I'll talk to the Lord like, God, is this just me? God, is this just me? I'm like, show me something. And it's just people.
Yeah, I honestly, like,
me included.
Genuine question. Like, do you feel like the Lord is calling you to, like, actually be a beacon of authenticity, to teach people how to do it? Because, like, it's hard to learn if you've never known. You know what I mean? Like, you also have to have people who have been there, done that. Like Abby and I, we foster, like, family culture, right? And, like, you can be yourself. We actually prefer you to be yourself. And, like, all of my friends will tell you, like, how nasty my mouth can be in, like, the funniest way. But, like, people love me because I am myself, Yeah. But, like, in the same way, like, we attract people who, A, either want to learn how to do that, or B, are like that. Is the Lord calling you to be that shining example of how to be, community leaders?
He began to speak on my heart 2 years ago, this summer, about this podcast. He, and I was like, God, why me? Like, come on, like, I saw literally this, and me in front of a microphone was the vision I was getting, and I remember driving in my car going, a podcast? Like, and then I said, okay, all right, God, I'm going to take this idea to Eric, because if anyone thinks I need to stop talking, it's him.
Eric has really strong discernment as well.
He's like overly discerning at times,
almost to a fault, is what she's saying.
Which is awesome, because I tend to get a little carried away with whatever creative thing kind of pops up in my head, and he kind of puts the reality spin on it, like, hey, that glass is, oh my gosh, that glass is 2/3 full. Yeah, but you drank 1/3 of it. Yeah. But anyway, so I said, I prayed to God about it. I'm like, God, this is funny, but okay. I said, if you want me to do this, speak through Eric, because if anyone's gonna say, did that thing? Okay.
I was just muting my mic because I cracked my neck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Unless you wanted that. I'm sorry.
I don't know. My stomach growls all the time. I had no idea.
ASMR?
Because sometimes I can feel it, like, coming up. I'm like, oh my gosh, my stomach's going to growl.
Yeah.
But when I came home, and I was like, I remember I was walking in this room, and I stopped, and I turned back to him, and I said, hey, I got a question for you. What would you think about me starting a podcast? Waiting for the, but you drank 1/3 of the glass. No, that's stupid, And he stopped. He was on his phone, and he stopped, and he was like, wow, yeah. I think that's what you should do. And you know, it's one of those things, because it almost felt like, you know, I wanted that discerning tone, because I can sometimes kind of let my dreams guide me, you know, and I've always wanted like my own show or my own thing. As from the time I was little, been writing like little weird stories and different stuff since I can remember. And, you know, and then I was like, is that just, you know, me just wanting something of my own right now? But, you know, I believe that God is done with all the fake baloney. Yeah. Like you're kneeling
I think
at
he was
the
always
altar.
done with it.
But I think that we're going to see a physical manifestation of it, if that's crazy to say, because, you know, it's, you know, we're worshiping yesterday, and oh my gosh, again, we're at this park. Me and Eric kind of pulled off to this shady end of the park, and there was a couple cars parked along where we were. It's over by the food trucks. I don't know if he knows, but you don't. But anyway, it was like this.
It's where the outcasts sit.
It's where the outcasts sit. It was like a field of all of the people, and we could see the stage. We could see everything going on. We could see which food trucks we wanted to dock to when we were all done. And so we're standing there, but you know, the worship is playing, and it was so nice to like hear the birds, and like to look up and see, you know, a canopy of leaves, and just kind of be in his creation outside. There's something really beautiful about God's, you know, word, and God's, you know, just our praise to him, you know, like lifting up, like it was just beautiful. Anyway, Satan was after me yesterday, and I was standing there worshiping, and all of a sudden this woman in this like car kind of, you know, like a little, like a Ford Taurus from like 1986. Yeah. I felt bad, but anyway, she comes, and then she pulls forward a little bit, and then I see the reverse lights, and she's pulling in to like where Eric and I are standing worshiping, and she's and I kind of look at him like, you think she's gonna stop? And he's like, I don't know. And part of me is like, well, let's see. You know. Let's play chicken. And so she's coming, and she's well into where she can be, where it won't be obstructing the roadway or anything, and she's still coming and coming. And so I start waving my arms, and like in her rear view, like, stop. Yeah. And then she keeping the car in reverse, which made me very nervous, because she was a very poor driver or backer-upper or parker, one of the things, or all three, I don't know. And she's like, oh, good. I was waiting for you to tell me when to stop.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, this is happening in worship?
Yeah.
Like, and there was plenty of places, and me and Eric were the only two there. Yeah. And that's where she pulled forward and backed into, like, right where we were. And I'm like, and that's kind of when I knew it was a bit of a spiritual attack that day. Like, wow, this is kind of messed up. Because, and then the woman with like, okay, 19 is done. Check. And I'm like,
you ever think that the Lord's been offending you on purpose?
What is happening? Huh?
Do you ever feel like the Lord's offending you on purpose?
He might be, and he can absolutely use it.
So I'm just like, you think about the woman, like, checking off her list. Like, obviously, inauthenticity drives you up the wall. But also people almost being ignorant to a point where it's just like, wow, really? I'm like, it just kind of sounds like God at the same time. Like, maybe he's confronting something.
Or maybe he is, and it's. It
could be the devil.
It could
also be the other side.
But that's it. The powers aren't against the flesh and blood. No. It's against the powers and principalities, and so I'm
just like, if there's room to offend, he will offend you.
Luckily, I just started laughing about it. I was just like, and I'm looking up at the canopy of leaves, like, really, really, this is like, if this was you, this is funny. If this was Satan, it was horrible. You know, but it does kind of put you, you know, kind of correct you a little bit. And the woman who, you know, I was her number 19, I'll never forget her. I will never forget her. And I will never forget to never make someone feel like number 19.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To, you know, and if I do start talking to someone, it's genuine.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I feel like I just want to clear away all the stuff that doesn't matter. And I feel like the Lord is doing that in my life. And, you know, it ended up just being kind of a funny thing that I've continued to talk about for a full day after. So come on now, it's powerful stuff.
So I was part of this group, Mark Meant for Christ, and I went to this P1 experience where I can't get super into the details, but there was, you know, they have you in a group and you start just kind of like weeding through things, and like they ask you very pointed questions and you like you answer them, you go around the circle, and like people, like you start to build a bond with these people. Without fail, every single time that I got a chance to speak, there would be a leader who would like hop on the mic and change the subject. Every single time that I talked, all weekend long. And it got to the point where I literally broke down. Like, cause I was about to hit it. Like they asked a question and I was getting really into it. And I could feel, I was on the cusp of breakthrough, like something that was going to reveal that that's been buried for a long time was about to like screech to life. And like, we're able to like, you know, bring it before the cross without fail. All right, boys, let's do something. And I'm like, and I literally blew up. And Jacob Corbett, he was my ringleader. Oh, not ringleader, but he was the leader of the group. And I scream at him. I'm like, I'm not even angry at you. I'm angry at leaders. Like, and like it was like one of those humble leaders. Like he realized what was going on. It wasn't personal, but I was screaming at him. It was like all this rage that I've had for years against church leaders and never being able to, or never letting me to actually speak and have that room to say something, always being interrupted or always being devalued, like all got stirred up. And like, it was like the Lord was small checking me all, like he was like offending that thing. And like, this is why I love the Lord with all my heart, is because he has all the wisdom and like he has the wisdom and the ability to know how to take something out. Like he'll rise the right opportunity, he'll rise the right problems in your life where he'll make these things bubble up to the top, and like deal with them as soon as they pop their ugly head. And so I'm not trying to say that. I'm just like, it just reminds me of that moment where like I blew up because the Lord was offending me. And I'm like, if there's room to be offended and there's something inside of you that can be offended, like there's been multiple occasions. Like I remember a revival group. So at my school, there was like 1,000 people, and they would break off into like smaller groups of like 75 to make, you know, 1,000-person school seem a lot smaller. You have more of a tribe. And we had a special speaker come in. His name is Eric Johnson. He's Bill Johnson's son. And I remember asking him a question, almost accusing the leadership, not of Bethel, but of my home church back in Vancouver, of like, man, like I think it was like the question went along like this, like how do I confront leadership for like I see what they're doing, but I also see what the Lord wants to do, and they're not doing that. And I remember like it was like a really prideful question, like I am the answer, like I am the savior to this church. And he said something that offended me so hard. I was wicked upset. And I remember just like sitting at home and like mulling over it. I was like entering bitterness. And I asked myself this question, like, why am I offended? And I remember like I like went over what he said. I'm like, actually everything that he said was right, like was the truth. And he offended me with the truth. And right away, like it was just like that pivot. I felt like all this stuff leave me. It was like all this deception, all this pride like left, because like I actually received the discipline of the Lord. And it wasn't like him offending me, it was someone else offending me, but it was someone else, like the Lord was using someone else to offend me. Because there's something inside of me, there's pride that needed to be offended.
See, now for me, I don't think I got offended so much as I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
you can't go around doing this. What if you meet someone who's so fragile?
I'm not calling that out.
No,
I think that honestly, like what you're bringing up is super valid. Like some people are super fake,
And it happens at church. So I posed a question on my Facebook, just for fun.
Are we gonna read those? Because I'd love to read those.
And was it fun?
Yeah.
Probably not. But I wrote, do you go to church? Why or why not? Mm-hmm. Right? And
we'll answer that question right after this bathroom break. 1 second.
Bathroom break. Okay.
A few moments later.
Cool. And we're back.
Wow, that was great. Thanks. Thanks for that. So, the question was, why do you go to church? Why do you go or not go to church? If I'm going to do it right. So first off, I thought it was really funny that I got 3 likes on the post and 67 comments, right? How that in and of itself was, and and again, like I haven't been feeling a super real connection with many people lately in church, and I don't, I'm kind of trying to navigate my little world accordingly, I guess. And I was like, wow, it'd be kind of a neat thing to examine.
Mm-hmm. Also, if you want to weigh in on these questions, we have a Facebook page that you can totally like, and we ask questions on there and you can answer, or you can send in if you have a live question or you want something that Michelle can answer, or if you have a question that Michelle can answer, we take those letters. So just want to put that shameless plug out there.
All right. So one of the ones that got me the most was this kid, and I knew him. He became radically saved about 10 years ago. I worked with him at one of my old jobs. That's how we became Facebook friends. That's how I have so many Facebook friends, through my plethora of jobs. And
50.
So he is, this young kid. He's got a young family. It's not that young anymore. I'm probably early 30s, but I guess that's young. I don't know. Everything feels young now. But he wrote, church is where I feel judged the most. And I totally resonate with that. Totally resonate with that. And sometimes I believe that is, maybe a spirit of conviction that kind of comes upon you when you get before the Lord too. I don't always feel like it's other people so much as maybe the Holy Spirit convicting you. But I loved everybody's response. Well, I liked everybody's response, because I loved the honesty, and I loved, and he responded like, I'm the temple of God. I don't need church to live a Christian life. I have Jesus.
Yeah. Do you want to read the whole thing?
Another woman wrote, I understand, and but for me, it's about community. And at the place of worship, I feel like they're my family, my God, my community. It's all, she feels like a very, a different way. And they kind of started going back and forth, not in a bitter, ugly way. Because if that happened, I would have shut it right down. I'm all done with that whole
it's nasty.
Fighting on my don't fight on my page. What the heck? You guys are supposedly my friends.
Yeah. Hey, you have a voice, and it's okay to have an opinion, but
you don't
if
have
you're like
to diminish,
degrading someone else,
right? It can get so ugly with that.
It's hard for me to not engage, because some things are just crazy, and sometimes I just want to poke at people. Poke the bear. So,
and a few people started kind of getting into biblical theology. And one guy who I happen to love, came right in and was like, hey, do you want to talk? Do you want to, I know of a great men's group, you can message me, this and that. And I loved that. And I was like, there's a Christian right there. Boom. There's one. But there's so many people that are hurt, and that jadedness. One of I don't feel I need to go to church to believe or pray, and you don't need to go to church to believe or pray. That's absolutely true. You, I need church because I feel, when worship is happening for me, and I think this was really a big part of when I left His Providence, and one of the big draws to come back. The worship, when you enter into a church and there's real worship, like people are crying out to the living God, and it's in all one accord, all of our voices, all of our hearts crying out in this one unified voice, and you're literally touching the throne of God. That's powerful stuff. Whether you feel judged, whether you feel whatever you feel, and I feel all kinds of ways about all kinds of people, and but I need to get over myself because I want to touch the hem of His garment. I want my God in every way, and I really, for me, worship is the way you get to the the doorstep of the throne room.
Yeah, it also begs the question, like, what does an actually perfect church even look like? Because, like, if you think about it, like, the church's main function is to bring in broken people and invite them to an encounter with Jesus, and Jesus will like develop them and love them out of their own brokenness. So, like, there will always be an element of, like, broken people. And if you also consider, like, if you notice the change, if you notice the flaws, like, a lot of people who have a lot of gripes with the church are still in unforgiveness. And so, like, that, like, we're commanded to forgive for good reason. Like, there's literal torment that is allowed in your life because of unforgiveness. But, like, if you see all the problems, like, why not partner with Jesus to bring and be a solution? Because if we all step back and be like, ooh, that's a mess, who's the job really left to?
Right.
And how can someone who's in, like, slaves, like, if you consider Moses, like, if you consider the Israelites, like, they were enslaved longer than America has even existed.
400 years.
So you have, like, just a mentality that's been driven in there, and that there's a reason that Moses had to be risen in royalty. It's because you can't have a pauper leave other paupers to freedom. You can only have free people lead enslaved people into freedom. People who understand, they have the ability to see, and, like, it's like freedom. Like, okay, yeah, there's people who get their lives transformed, but if you realize that there's an issue in the church, like, it's important to actually, like, put on your big boy pants, like, encounter Jesus, like, realize what your purpose is on the earth, and is to not forsake the brotherhood or the brethren.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for running away, like, we're not called to run away. I hear a lot of theology about, like, like the rapture and things like going haywire, and, like, almost like this thing to retreat from. But I'm like, what are we actually scared of?
I'm not.
If you think, you know what I mean? Like, what are we scared of?
I have fear of the Lord, and honestly, that's something I've been working on, because if you look scripturally, fear is a sin.
Yeah.
We are commanded consistently over and over, take courage.
Yeah.
So we don't get handed courage. Courage doesn't pour out onto our head. Like what I was saying about my daughter, how I would tell her to kind of, like, put on that false bravado of confidence to, and other people will believe it. So you take courage, you muster yourself, you gird up your loins. That's a Bible quote. I don't think we have the girds anymore. I don't know, but it doesn't
a laying on of hands is a really important thing. Like, it's still a thing. Like, the way that the patriarchs passed their blessing was through, like, laying on of hands. Like, the way that you pass the Holy Spirit is through the laying on of hands. Like, yeah, you could ask for a measure, but there's also a measure that needs to be given to you. Like, Paul has a ministry. He's like, this gift is not complete, or this ministry is not complete until I've laid my hands on you and given you this inheritance. So it's, like,
with that
really
take
important.
courage thing, you could take that a little further. If you are sown into a good, solid church with good leadership, that you, the laying on of hands is important. I believe on both sides. I believe that is a very spiritual thing, and I am very leery of people I do not know putting their hands on me.
Well, you're
pray.
allowed to test the spirits,
And that's the thing too. You bring yourself, you like this place of like, oh my gosh, I need someone to pray for me. And for me, because I tend to still hold on to that little glimmer of pride. That's super hard for me to like ask for help or say I need, or I was always very independent in my ways.
Self-sufficient,
and for me to get to that point where I need help me, and I've felt the wrong hand on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I've definitely been that. I'm like, hey, you're allowed to say, hey, no, thank you.
But that's one of those things. So that politeness comes back into play. When I was a kid, we were not to like tell people like,
I grew up underneath.
I gotta watch what I say.
I grew up underneath politeness as well because my mom and my dad specifically, he's from South Africa, but also growing up in Canada, like there's a huge British politeness thing that has transcended generations. But I also wanted to just come back to like just the fear thing. Like, we're called to be obedient until death, and to not shriek back. Because what are we actually scared of? You know what I mean? So, like, if you're running away, like, you're actually, like, you're running away from your destiny, really. You're running away from the mandate, like, that Jesus gave us, like, to heal the sick, cast out demons, stuff like that. Like, we can't run away from our destiny. But I want to hear more.
I'm not, I'm going to leave names out of this. My Facebook profile is private.
But we have a page. We have a public page.
Yeah. So this is like just my private kind of soiree. A person had wrote that they falsely believe this was I don't go because most of its attendees falsely believe that homosexuality is a sin. I'm going to tell you that it is a sin, okay?
You're wrong about that one, buddy.
Literally, it says God detests homosexuality. Yeah. And I don't want to, you know what, but God also detests a liar. God also detests sin of any kind. Any kind of sin, God can't even look at. When Jesus bore the sin of all mankind, God had to look away because Jesus took that on until he gave up his spirit.
Yeah, the scriptures are pretty clear about it, and I'm just going to leave it at that. The scriptures are clear, and if you've interpreted in a way where it's not like that, it's probably because you're twisting the scriptures for it to say that. And
it's sad because you know what, I have family members, but here's the deal. I've probably sinned 4 times already today. And that's where that repentant, when I remember when I first came to the Lord, I was smoking a joint and driving, like, and it was a huge encounter. I'm like, God, you don't want me. I'm smoking a joint right now. Like I was having this it was something out of a movie. And he's like, I love you. Come to me. He didn't say, put that down. Put that out. Throw that out your window. Come to me. He didn't say, stop swearing, then come to me. He just said, I love you. Come to me. And it was funny because I would I'm probably going to offend a lot of church people right now, but when I had that encounter with Jesus, I knew it was real. I knew like, oh my gosh, I gotta
know
hear
what the real
this
thing is.
What is this guy saying? Like this rocked my world. So I went out and I bought a Bible, like one of the an easy one to read, the NASB. I find that like my favorite. To just be able to comprehend, because King James can be a little tough. Even if you know scriptures, sometimes you'll read something in King James and you're like, what the heck is that? You have to kind of go back. But I would go outside with a joint in one hand and a Bible in the other. I would go out on the back porch, light my joint, and then I'd walk over. We had like a little pond, and I would smoke it, and I'd pray, and then I'd read my Bible. Sounds crazy. I know. I did this every day. And Eric I remember he came home and he got so mad at me. What are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, you're smoking a joint and then going and praying? He's like, and I'm like, I think God just wants me. I don't think he cares about anything else. And he didn't right then.
Yeah.
He came in later.
Yep.
And said, okay, that's over for you.
Yeah.
And you know, he,
in the gentlest and most empowering way possible.
it was he's so funny.
Yeah.
I think he's just so, and I love seeing the humor of God, like ostriches. Come on, that's funny stuff. Thank you, Jesus. And I remember one day specifically, I went out with my joint and my lighter wouldn't work, and I was starting to get, if you've ever smoked or whatever, you know that feeling on your thumb from that little wheel on your Bic. And I was like, oh, son of a gun, this thing's just not lighting. So I go into the house, and I didn't like to smoke in the house because my kids were going to be home at some point. So I didn't smoke in there anyway, but I lit it off the stove real quick and then like scooted out the door.
Yeah.
And so I get outside, and the thing goes out again, and it's called a canoe, when like half of the joint smokes and the other half doesn't. And you end up wasting like that whole part that didn't burn right. So see, you're learning things. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to light this stupid thing. And I get outside with it. It's finally lit. And I hear, you don't want that. And I remember it was so audible.
Yeah.
I started looking around and I said, yes, I do.
Yeah.
No, you don't. That doesn't even make you feel good anymore. And I remember just kind of like staring at it for a little bit, like,
Did your desire turn off for it like right away?
I was like, it doesn't make me feel good anymore.
Yeah.
And I flicked it into the bushes. And up until that point, I had tried to quit. But it was like a mind over matter thing for whatever reason. And I would always, every time I forget that, I'm all set. I would go back in the bushes and look for that half a joint. You know what I mean?
Try to spark it up again.
Yeah, absolutely. And this time I didn't. And that was when I noticed like just like the desires of these things that were keeping me from having the fullness of who he is, just kind of, I don't want to say came off by themselves, but they kind of did. Yeah. I came to him. I love you. Come to me. Yeah. That was all I did.
It's that obedience thing, like you had the tares that wanted to stand up, and you were bowing, and so that thing had to go. Like I remember when I was having a really hard, when I first got saved, like that the Lord was just like really, I felt like I was in the crucible, and I felt like all these things were coming up that the Lord was dealing with, and some things were super easy.
So a crucible is something that refines metal.
It's a vessel that you put
gold.
More like gold's a great example where like you put gold in there and then you put it over really hot fire, and over time the gold will melt and the impurities in the gold will rise to the top, and like they'll take off the nasty stuff, and like you'll have a really refined gold at that point. And so I'm in the crucible, like I just get saved, and the way that the Lord confronted things in my life were so gentle, so sweet, so empowering. It was never like that, Baptist preacher saying like, you sinner, like it's not how, that's not how God operates.
I know.
And like the Lord always, I would talk to the Lord because I heard him so clearly, like I knew his voice, and it was like, he would often say, you have a heart of gold. And he would just keep, like, I'm like, because like people, like one of the things is like rejection, like why can't I do friendship or whatever? And the Lord would say the opposite, like, you have a heart of gold. And over time, the Lord started revealing this heart of gold that he's put inside of me. And it was his word that brought it up. You can do self-help for the rest of your life. And, like I've noticed a pretty strong trend with, going to therapies. Like I've noticed that a lot of these people, even though going to therapy is really good for like, self-awareness, like learning things that you really do struggle with. I feel like one of the downfalls, from just like the fruit that I've seen from it is like people, they learn to settle and make friends with things that the Lord actually wants to remove out of their life, and not actually actively being delivered from it. And like the Lord is our deliverer, he's our counselor. Like I'm not saying it's not wise to have that stuff in your life, but the Lord is faithful to actually heal you, not just where you get comfortable in the same room with it. So what else we got?
So we got the church is my family. I don't feel judged, even when I do super stupid things. They're my community, and they love me unconditionally. Because nothing makes me happier and more fulfilled than serving God's house and his people. I go to church because God set me in a community of supporters, me and my husband, using our gifts and where we can be stretched. I always feel at peace, no judging at our Catholic church. That's awesome, right? I've often felt judged at our Catholic church, except for one time. I'm just going to do this super quick. I used to really, this is going to sound so crazy, especially coming from me, but I used to love confession. I remember the first time I did it, I was like, wow, I feel so good. Like I got all that stuff out of me. Like I taught my best friend how to swear and that she should say, your mother's this, and it means she's beautiful.
Which everybody's had an experience like that. You're either the one telling someone that, or you've been the one one
that received it. And, so like all these things. And I remember like being, right before my first communion, like, wow, I am like new and shiny. Yeah. And then I had, I've always been a huge Van Halen fan. Hey, represent Team Eddie. But I had this Van Halen concert shirt one day, and it said on the back, Van Halen kicks ass. I'm going to say it. I'm going to just say it. Okay.
You sinner.
I feel so bad. I got to confess now. I confess that I said the bad word. But anyway, and I remember I had, I used to wear like denim jackets and all this stuff. And I took my jacket off, and it was purely to shock the priest. Like, hey, look at my shirt, right? It's got that word on it. How you feeling? And he never saw it. He sat, we didn't do confession in a booth. We sat in one of the pews up towards the front, and we talked. We just had this really awesome conversation, and he was a really cool, down-to-earth guy, and I was really thankful for that. And I've thought about that throughout the years, like, here he is. So I'm probably at that point. I got my Marlboro lights in my pocket, and probably a joint in that pocket, and who knows, maybe even a hit of acid in another one. But this guy was just love. And I loved seeing that. And in that denominational thing or that non-denominational thing, whatever you're comfortable with is I would think fine with God, as long as your heart is really for him.
I've met some incredible Catholics. I have some Catholics in my life that are just incredible, like Simon and Yasmin. They're incredible. And also, I can't remember his name, but he's like one of the priests at St. Patrick's in Providence. And I met him once, and he's like, Father James, I think. And he's like one of the most incredible people. Like, he exemplifies Christ on such a molecular level. And like everybody knows him in the community to be like this incredible vessel of the Lord. And
what can happen with like our sect, if you will, the non-denominational, we can almost get this pretentious, cocky walk of
it's on both sides of the aisles. I'll be real, though.
It's not about religion, it's about relationship, and that's absolutely true. Like I feel like I have a really wonderful relationship with the Lord, where he knows more about me than I even know about myself, which is pretty amazing. And I can come to him and be real and lay it all at his feet. But it's like all these weird little divisions that we kind of make with each other. And your church is better. It's all Jesus, people. And
some churches are to be avoided. But as long as you're partnering with Jesus and he tells you and he leads you out, like, that's important. Also Hannah for being an incredible Catholic. I just wanted to shout these people out because they're incredible.
That's cool. And Jerry Perdomo, Jerry Perdomo, the dad, he's got an awesome photography business about shout outs anyway. I know we were talking about him. I want to put a link.
For sure. I'd love to do that.
For his, because he's just awesome, and he's so fun too, if you're ever going to get
If you're in the Providence area that want incredible photography, hit that guy up.
So my mom wrote, I'm gonna throw you under the bus, Miss Sharon. You need to feel it in your heart, yourself, not what others think. When two or more are gathered in his name, rejoice. My mom has grown up Catholic, and she's always loved Jesus. We have, I don't. So that's the thing too. Like, my mom doesn't swear. My mom is like, she's a
good Catholic.
Yeah, she's really good, and she just loves.
Yeah.
And my mom has always been this pillar of forgiveness and love in my life. My dad, joy, humor, love, and that. Well, my mom, joy too. But I think they were the biggest examples of Christ in my life ever, and they're not practicing Catholics. They go, for the occasional, my dad will go for the occasional wedding or funeral. My mom will go once in a while just because. Yeah. But they've acted in such a way. And I think we got to get back to that because, and then another one, no, I'm a proud atheist. God's not real. And I liked that he wrote that because here he is in a sea of Christian comments, and he stood by his ground, and he's being authentic and real. And I don't want that sugar-coated candy crap
I'm all
anymore,
about,
unless it's actual sugar-coated candy.
Yeah, I'm all about respectful discourse.
Yeah, and he was,
discourse, discord, whatever it is. I'm not sure.
So. And a lot of people are like, I love all the comments. I can appreciate all the responses. I went to church as a kid, but been there, done that.
Yeah, unfortunately, like when you... This is more risky to say, but unfortunately there are churches out there where if Jesus did show up, he'd be kicked out. And I don't want to slander anybody. I don't want to slander because, like, honestly, I don't know where your heart's at. But I will say that, like, you do need to pay attention to the red flags, and ask Jesus what to do about that. Like, are you called to that church? Because are you called to be submitted to those leaders, or are you called to, go somewhere else? Because, like, if you're gonna have the choice to either just leave church altogether, just because you had a bad couple of experiences, like, pray to the Lord and ask him to bring you to the right place, because he's faithful to do so. Because his heart is to cherish you and to grow you. And if you've hit growth, if you stop growing, or you feel like, there's just too many red flags, I can't ignore it, like, the Lord will probably lead you to somewhere that is just thriving. It's funny.
That red flag happened for me at the church, the one we got kicked out of. The red flag for me at that church was, it was probably a -4-degree day outside. It was flipping cold. New England is horrible, and I hate it. I'm cold just thinking about how cold that day was. I really am. But anyway, it was, we go into the church. My husband and I, we ran a food pantry for them. And we, getting ready to go into service, and one of the gentlemen who attended our food pantry was a homeless man, and he was visually homeless, and he comes in, and they had like a large lobby area with couches and tables and coffee, and and they told him, no, you can't be in here. You have to go outside and wait for the food pantry to open. This man slept in a porta potty to keep the winds off of him because it was so frigid. And that was a huge red flag.
I really can't speak to, because I obviously don't know leadership over there, but the gospel's so clear, on stuff like that. But, it could have been just someone who is lower level who was just like, no, this is the rules, like, arms crossed,
And that's this one too, because sometimes church people hurt you more than regular people.
Yeah, some people are entitled to their judgment of you.
Yeah. And I wrote so true. Yeah. And this, this one kid, he basically, I don't go to church for the same reason. I don't go to a mosque or synagogue. I don't accept the claims of these respective religions as true. And can I just say, this specific person grew up in the church. He played on the worship team. He was super active. He was at every youth.
Yeah.
He was knit into everything.
Yeah.
And he got hurt by the church.
Yeah. I would have to say, like, so I did 3 years at a ministry school out in California, and the third year is an internship year. And man, there was just so much ego inside of me where, like, I thought it was my job to purposely hurt people because I thought it was God offending them. And there was just so much, like, hurt that I was dealing out on so many levels. And you know what? The year did turn out to be really good. Like, there was, you know, a lot of healing and restoration. But, like, you know, some people, like, I was really, really broken. And that broken manifested in, like, when I had power, like, I used it to abuse people. And, like, if you're one of those people, I'm really sorry. Like, the Lord has changed my life again, and, like, I'm not that person today. But you also have to realize that, you know, like, money and power can, like, really show people's issues, and power did that for me. And so, like, I think it's really good to keep in perspective that, like, people aren't perfect, and, like, not everything is super tailored to you, but these things do happen on a regular basis, and it is extremely painful and should not be, like, that stuff should be called out, confronted, and like, there should be restoration, because, you know, like, one of the most dangerous things you can have is someone who's immature and power hungry to be a leader at the church. And, you know, I really recommend these books for those individuals as spiritual authority, but also this book by Danny Silk called Unpunishable, divorcing your love affair with punishment. And like I said, like, it's not about punishing people, but, like, there's been people who have been wicked hurt by the church just because people did not know how to steward authority and the power of God on their life. And, like, you know, it's a really powerful place to, like, have when someone asks you questions where you could literally steer their life with the words that come out of your mouth. And that has absolutely been abused in the past. I will have to say also, though, that I'm seeing, like, a huge turnaround in that, like, in the younger church culture of, like, people are aware of those things. They're aware of these really unhealthy habits and unhealthy things. And, like, people are actively choosing how to do the opposite. And I'm really excited for the next 20 years of church culture, because you're starting to see these people start to get into leadership, and the Lord is completely breaking through into people's lives. Yeah. And also, like, the Lord is so faithful to heal these wounds. Like, for me, I was wounded myself, you know, and, like, I had a really poor role model for leadership. I'm not going to mention, like, who they are and what position they had in my life, but they gave me such a macho, control everything, like, example, to the point where I thought that was normal, and that was the man, like, that was me being the man. And, like, it is so opposite from the Father's heart to lead in that manner, and he actually disciplines those very strongly in ways. And, like, you know, like, you can, like, look into Psalms and Proverbs of how calamity, and I don't want to speak judgment or anything, but, like, how the Lord's judgment is executed on these people, and it's in ways that are largely unreversible if they refuse to repent.
Well, and with leadership too, they're held to a higher standard.
Oh, absolutely. God will not be mocked.
No. And this is funny. One of the women wrote, I think people hold Christian. I'm basically taking little snippets out. I'm not reading, like, some of these are long. People get a lot to say about this subject, which was really, but it was. I think people hold Christians to a higher standard than they hold themselves. So they, in turn, judge us more than most of us judge them.
Which is pride.
You know, I mean, I do think, you know, I remember feeling like, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be judged. I remember again, back to the Catholic church I used to attend. Now, I was brought up Catholic, like, that's all I knew, and which is fine, and again, fine. I didn't know the Lord at all. I knew that if I wanted to go to heaven, this is what I knew, and I'm going to be real. I had to get my baptism, my first communion, my confirmation, and of course I wanted my baby to go to heaven, so I wanted her to get baptized.
Yeah.
Eric and I were not married when I was pregnant with Sam. We got married when I was 8.5 months pregnant. He finally we were like, let's be a family before she gets here. So we were like, yeah. And that's how it all came to be, which is really awesome. But
Sam is incredible.
Yeah, she is. She is a gift from God.
I love that girl with all my heart.
And
in the most pure way possible.
So I remember going to, we were pregnant.
Pregnant like this, not like that.
But we were pregnant, and we went to talk to the priest, and he asked, of course, if we were married. Yeah. And I said no. He's like, oh, okay, interesting. He's like, well, why do you even want to baptize your child? And again, real, I said to him, I don't really know what anything looks like. But I know if this is the way for my kid to get in heaven, and this is all I've been taught, then I want to make sure she has that foundation. And then if she's a little older and decides to go in another route or whatever, I mean, look, being baptized in the name of the Lord, that can't be a bad thing. I know that in Scripture it's not mentioned. The only thing mentioned with babies or children is presenting them to Lord, God. Yeah. And then baptism comes when you're an adult, because that's when you can make that conscious decision. And he was like, I love that. I love that answer. You know what? Yeah, absolutely, we'll baptize your baby. Yeah. And I loved that, because the Catholic Church was getting a lot of kind of pushback about. Oh, well, you can't get, you've been divorced, so now you can't get married unless you get that marriage annulled. And it's like it was like a really, it's like, oh, we can't marry your daughter here because you've gotten divorced, or, like there's runoff where it breaks from the Word of God, Scripture, actual Scripture, into man-made doctrines and philosophies, which
was the Pharisees' issue.
And sometimes we can get caught up in those man-made things and leave back the latter. But I believe if you really love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing God's work. That's what Jesus. Those are out of his mouth, his 2 greatest commandments. And so, no matter what, no matter where, no matter how, that should be your greatest and most ultimate purpose. Love God, love your neighbor. Boom, done. That's religion at its purest. The widow and the orphan, take care of them.
I actually strongly recommend against following just rules and regulations, and the reason why being a disciple of Jesus is so important is because you want to be disciplined by him. You want to follow him. There's been so many times where I've taken my heart to the Word, and the Word is so clear about something, it exposes something in myself that exists, and I'm like, God, take this from me. I don't want it. To be chastened and to be disciplined by the Lord shows his love and affection for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And one person wrote free child care.
That's real though for some moms.
And it is, and that's a great little
VBS comes in clutch for a lot of families.
Oh, it really does. And it's giving your kids a foundation on their level. You have a 3-year-old, and they're listening to I remember going and being bored out of my mind on those wooden pews and just staring. I remember just staring at the cross with Jesus hanging on it and thinking, oh, that is awful.
Yeah.
That is just off. And I would be fixated on just staring at him this is awful. Why can we take him off of can we take him off now?
Yeah. Which is how the Protestants present the cross as not with Jesus on it.
Right.
And the Catholics are they have the body on to show
to remind of that sacrifice because it's so huge.
I actually just learned this the other day. in Aramaic. So the way that the Jews, that the way that they have God in like the Torah is like Yahweh, or there's different like different names, but they took out the vowels because they deemed it too holy to even pronounce the way that they that they read it. So they in the Torah and in the Pentateuch, it is YHWH. YHWH. And when Jesus was crucified, like how like the depiction is like INRI, like INRI. And like actually what was on there was the Aramaic version of whatever that said, and it was YHWH. And the Jews, like, they were like, and so like it was literally like Yahweh, like you crucified Yahweh, and they were like so mad at the Romans that they were like trying to get it torn down,
and he wouldn't do it, which is very
isn't that
cool.
Crazy though? Like, shout out to the Passion Translation, right? Those footnotes are real. So
I used to when I was in college, which was not so long ago. I went in my latter years. I took this class on the Old Testament, and I loved learning that the scribes that would take the word and write it out. The word Yahweh was so holy that they actually had a special pen.
Yeah,
just for that word, and they would go put the pen back to its special. It was like
I think they changed their garments too.
It was holy. Yeah. And I love the Catholics' reverence to the Lord. Yeah. I love the just that reverence that they have. But I tend to love the the more fluid way that the Lord tends to speak to me.
Yeah, different, churches do it different.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I'm like, it's really not my job to change that. I'm just gonna all right, that's cool. That's the way that you worship, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually gotta wrap this up. I got an appointment, but thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being here, Sam. Because I really couldn't do this without you. Well, not the video part anyway. Yeah. But it's awesome. It was awesome talk and awesome time. And guys, definitely check out Thoughtful Ramblings on Facebook, and hit me up. Tell me what you think. And I'd love to hear your take on church, but I'd also love to hear what makes people passionate. Yeah. Like, what is your fire? What do you feel like has almost been placed in your soul that that's your thing that you're supposed to do? Yeah.
Please write into us. Like, if you've actually been extremely hurt by the church, but also have, like, the Lord has actually healed that, I want to hear about that. So if you wouldn't mind, like, writing in and letting us...
He does all the reading. I just do the talking.
And we'll read it. We'll read it over the show, and Michelle can comment on it.
It's true. I can. That's one thing I can do. Just always comment on something.
She's always got something to say.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Love you is awful. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.